So once again, good morning all students. And today we will be discussing the chapter Our Environment. We did this chapter previously also, but today we will continue with the rediscussion of this chapter, Our Environment. So before starting with today's topic of our environment, can anyone tell me what do we mean by our environment? What do we mean by the term our environment? Or how can we define our environment? Yes, through the chat box, you give me the reply that what do we mean by our environment? Okay, very good. Good. Yes. All the things which surround us. Very good. Anything surrounding us. So suppose if you are in your classroom, the classroom becomes your environment. If you are in your if you are in the playing ground, that becomes the environment. And if suppose you are in your lab, the lab becomes your environment. So anything surrounding us is called our environment. Okay, anything surrounding us is called environment. Fine. So now we will be seeing that what is an environment. Definitely, an environment is everything that is around us, which includes both living and non-living things such as soil, water, animals, plants, which adapt themselves to their surrounding. Definitely, it is a nature's gift that helps in nourishing life on Earth. Without environment, or we can say without the different components of the environment, will it be possible for us to survive? Yes, student, share opinions. Will be possible for us to survive without the help of the living and the non-living component of the environment? No, definitely correct. It is not possible for us to survive without the help of the non-living as well as the living component of the environment. So definitely it is correct that an environment is anything which surrounds us, and that includes definitely the living as well as a non-living material of the environment. Before going into the next slide, students, can you tell me what are the living components of the environment known as? What are the living components of the environment known as? Okay, I'm allowing some of the students to unmute yourself. Yes, Anand. Anand, you can unmute yourself. What is the living component of the environment known as? By which term? Okay, biotic component. And the non-living component, living component is called biotic, and non-living component? Yes, now Shambhavi. Shambhavi, you can unmute yourself, Shambhavi. Let me enable you to unmute. Yes, Shambhavi, you can unmute yourself. What does the non-living component of the environment is known by a term? Yes, Shambhavi, you can unmute yourself. Yes, Shambhavi, 1 minute. Okay, through the chat box. Okay. Yes, very good. That is the abiotic component. Abiotic component. Okay, very good. Abiotic component. Yes, very good. So now, students, we are moving to our next slide. Types of environment. Okay, though again we are seeing in this slide things and the event around us that we observe make our environment. Types of environment, if we want to talk about, there are some which are natural, made by nature, like plants, animals, hills, mountains, water bodies. These are gifted from nature. And second is a man-made, that is houses, roads, buildings, market, etc. So these are the man-made component of the environment. Okay. Now, first of all, before going into the discussion of the effect of adding waste to the environment, students, what is a waste? What is a waste, students? Through the chat box, you give me the reply. What is waste? What is waste? Through the chat box, you give me the reply. What is waste? Very good, Palak. Okay. Okay. Yes. Now, okay. Palak, you can unmute yourself, Palak, to say what is waste. Palak,
Yes,
I
sir.
have given you the option. You can unmute yourself. Palak, tell me that how we can define waste or what is waste?
Undesirable material in the environment is called waste.
Very good. Any undesirable material in the environment is called waste. Okay. So what is the effect of adding waste to the environment? If continuously we are producing a lot of waste material which are thrown into the environment, so what problem it will create? It will definitely cause pollution of air, even water and soil. Okay, so this is the main point, that it is creating pollution. Now, the classification of the waste material are of two types: biodegradable and non-biodegradable. Before going into the discussion, let me let me see your previous acquired knowledge regarding biodegradable and non-biodegradable. This time Pushkar, 10B Pushkar, unmute yourself, Pushkar. What do you mean by
Yes, sir.
biodegradable waste, Pushkar? Biodegradable waste.
Biodegradable are waste which are decomposed into harmful substance by microorganisms.
Definitely, which can be, we can say, decomposed by the microorganism. Got it? So if we talk about the examples of the biodegradable waste, it will be vegetable peels, the fruits, even jute, wool, wood. These all can be decomposed by the microorganism. Now, my one question to you all: will the biodegradable waste will cause pollution to the environment or not? So for this, Michelle Raj 10A, unmute yourself, Michelle. Michelle, you unmute yourself. My question was
Yes,
that,
sir.
do biodegradable waste will cause pollution to the environment?
So if they are excess in amount, then they can cause damage to our environment.
But Michelle, biodegradable can be decomposed. Okay, it can be decomposed.
Yes, sir.
So it will have a direct impact on either the soil, air, or the water?
No, sir.
No. Very good. Yes, definitely one point which Michelle said, that if in excess of the quantity it is produced, definitely it will take time to decompose, and by that time maybe some or the other problem can also arises regarding its disposable, where to dispose, how to dispose. So this sort of problem can definitely arise with the quantity of the biodegradable waste we are producing and throwing in the environment. Very good, Michelle. Now, next is non-biodegradable. From the name itself, it is clear to us the opposite of the biodegradable will be the non-biodegradable. Definitely, the waste which are not decomposed by the microorganism. Like we know several examples for this: polythene bags, plastics, even glass metals, pesticides, insecticides. So pesticides are the chemicals which are used to kill the pest. Insecticides are the chemicals which are used to kill the insects. These are being used in the crop field also, and they are remaining with the crop and create a huge, or we can say a great quantity of the soil pollution. So will the biodegradable, definitely from the definition and the example itself, it is clear to us that the non-biodegradable waste will be creating a pollution of air, soil, and water, all the three aspects. So is it clear to all that what is the effect of adding waste to the environment? What is the effect of adding waste to the environment is clear to all? Effect of adding waste to the environment is clear to all? Okay, fine. Okay, yes. Okay. Yes, you have given the answer. Okay, fine. Now, let us come to our next topic. Now, the most important part of an environment. Remember, students, from the environment unit, 5 marks is allotted for your final examination. So each and every aspect and maximum, or we can say mainly this chapter is awareness based chapter, okay, where your knowledge regarding your surrounding, its effect, it is to be taken into consideration. So now we will be coming to the very important aspect of the environment, that is the ecosystem. Okay, as a students, in the beginning of the class you are told that environment consists of the living as well as a non-living component. The living component are called biotic and the non-living component are definitely called abiotic. Now, will, or I can say the living component is dependent on the non-living component, or it is not dependent on the non-living component. What is your opinion? Please share in the chat box. My question is that the living component is dependent on the non-living component or not. The living component is dependent on the non-living component or not. Very good. Yes, all of you have given a single word answer, and I can say altogether the same answer, that is yes, dependent. Very good. The living component will not be able to survive in absence of the non-living component. Very good. So I can say that there is a regular interaction or dependency between the living and the non-living component. So that very particular place of the environment forms an ecosystem. So what is an ecosystem? An ecosystem consists of all the living organism in an area along with the non-living component and their interaction. That means the functional aspect of the environment where both the living and the non-living component are living together, interacting with each other and forming a functional unit. So that becomes the ecosystem. Did you got it? So what is an ecosystem? It is a functional unit in the environment where there is a regular interaction between the living and the non-living components, and togetherly they form a functional unit, a functional self-operating unit. Is it clear to all of you? Is it clear to all the students? Okay, very good. Fine. Okay. Now, after this, we are coming to types of ecosystem. We are coming to types of ecosystem. There are two types of ecosystem. One is natural and the other is artificial. Like students, we have discussed the type of environment. One was natural and another was artificial or the man-made. So like that, the ecosystem are of also two types. One is a natural and the other is the artificial. What is a natural ecosystem? Definitely created by the nature. For example, forest, deserts, grassland, ponds, lakes, rivers, oceans. And if you talk about the artificial ecosystem, it includes man-made ecosystem, that is gardens, park, crop field, aquarium. Got it? So there are two types, natural and artificial, one created by nature and the other is a man-made. Is it clear to all the students? Is it clear to all the students? Okay. Okay, yes. Okay, you have given the remark. Okay, fine. Okay. Okay. Okay, good. Now, students, after this, we are coming to the major portion of this discussion, that is the component of an ecosystem. In the beginning of the class only, we discussed that there are two main components. One is a biotic and other is the abiotic. Biotic, definitely the living component, which includes plants, animal, microorganism. But here there is a classification also of the living or the biotic component. They are, or we can say they are further subdivided into producer, consumer, and decomposer. So you can see producer, these are definitely the green plants which produce food by photosynthesis. Definitely they are our autotrophs. Consumer, who are dependent on the producers, or consumers are herbivores which get their food directly from the plants. And then are the decomposers. Decomposers are the microorganisms which decompose plants and animals. Okay, here student, one further subdivision of the consumer is there, which is called primary consumer, secondary consumer, and tertiary consumer. So let me see how much you have your idea regarding this whole aspect. Yes, students, the consumer, the further subdivision into primary consumer, secondary, and tertiary. Can anyone? Okay, I'm allowing you. Yes, Sneha 10B, Sneha Rao 10B. You can unmute yourself, Sneha. Sneha, who are primary consumer? I told consumer are of three types. Who are primary consumer? Yes, Sneha, you can unmute yourself.
Primary consumer.
Primary consumer, secondary consumer, and tertiary consumer. There are three divisions of the consumer. So who are primary consumer? Who are the primary consumers, Sneha? Okay, Sneha, you remain connected with our discussion. Maybe you are having some confusion. Okay. Who wants to answer this question? Raise your hand. So that okay. Anjali and I, okay, first Anjali. Anjali raised her hand. Okay, let me allow Anjali. Yes, Anjali, you can unmute yourself, Anjali.
Yes, sir.
Who are primary consumer, Anjali?
Primary consumer are the organisms that eat only plants.
Very good. So they are called?
Herbivore.
Very good. Herbivore. Definitely the primary consumer are those who eat the plant, and hence they are the herbivore. An example of the herbivore like cow, deer, so they eat only the plant material. So they are at the first, or we can say the primary level of the consumer. Very good, Anjali. Then Aryan. Aryan, you can unmute yourself, Aryan. Aryan, question for you is that who
Yes,
are
sir.
secondary consumer?
These are the organisms that eat flesh. For example, lion, tiger.
These are the organisms that eat flesh, example, lion and the tiger. Okay, very good. So we can say one special term is given to these organisms, the secondary consumer. Can you recall? Yes, Aryan, you can again unmute yourself as we are continuing with your discussion only. Yes, you are correct that they are the flesh eaters like lion and the tiger. But my one more question will be with you. That is there any special term given to the secondary consumer? Yes, Aryan. Aryan, you can unmute yourself. Is there any special term like Anjali told that for primary consumer, there is a special term herbivores. So for secondary consumer, is there any special term? I think Aryan lost the connectivity. Aryan, you can again, yes, I'm giving you the option to unmute yourself, Aryan.
Sir, carnivores.
Very good.
Sir,
Carnivores.
carnivorous.
Yes, I got your answer. Very good, Aryan. Okay. So the two divisions of the consumer, that is a primary consumer and the secondary consumer. Primary consumer are those who eat only plants like the herbivores, cow, buffalo. Secondary consumer are those who are flesh eaters, and definitely The last one, the tertiary consumer. Tertiary consumer, anyone raise your hand who are the tertiary consumer? Again, Aryan. Again, Aryan. Okay, Palak has also raised her hand. Okay. Okay, first Aryan raised. Okay, let me give the chance to Aryan only first. Okay, Aryan. You can unmute yourself.
These are the organic. Yes, these are the organisms that eat both plant and flesh. For example, human beings.
And they are called?
Omnivorous.
Very good, very good, very good, Aryan. Yes, definitely the consumer, the three types, primary, secondary, and tertiary. So the primary is your plant eaters, who are the herbivores. The secondary consumer are the flesh eaters, who are carnivores. And the tertiary consumer are both plant and the flesh eaters, and therefore they are called omnivores. So this is a further classification of the consumers. And the last components we discussed, decomposer, who feed on the dead and the decaying plant and the animals. So this was about your biotic, the living component. Is it clear, or anyone having any confusion in biotic component? If you have, you can share in the chat box. Or else we will be proceeding with the abiotic components. Do you have any doubts? No. Okay, fine. Okay. Okay. So now we are coming to the abiotic component, which are the non-living component of the environment, like air, water, soil, mineral. Definitely the living component are dependent on this non-living component. So this is the all about the component of the ecosystem, the two components, the biotic and the abiotic. I hope the ecosystem and its types and its component is clear to all the students. Ecosystem, its component and type is clear to all the students. Is it clear to all? Okay. Okay, I got the feedback. Okay, fine. Okay. Now, after this, we come to another very important section of the chapter, that is food chain. Okay, student, as you said now that the plants are eaten up by the primary consumer, like suppose cow. The cow suppose eaten up by the secondary consumer, like the lion. Okay, so this is a sequence where one organism eats the another. So in nature, there is a sequence where one organism eats the another, that is called food chain. For example, let us first see the chains, and then we will go to the definition part. You see one very first example, grass, that which is a producer, is eaten up by primary consumer, the deer. Deer is eaten up by lion, which is the secondary consumer. Again, the next example, grass, which is a producer, eaten up by insect, which is a primary consumer. Insect is eaten up by frog, which is a secondary consumer, and snake eats frog. Snake is a tertiary consumer. If we are talking about one more sequence of eating, or we can say one organism eaten up by another, grass is eaten up by moth, which is a primary consumer. Then frog, which is a secondary consumer. Frog is eaten up by snake, which is a tertiary consumer. And snake is eaten up by hawk, which is a quaternary consumer. So in the first food chain, it is of 3 organisms. In the second food chain, 4. And likewise, in the third food chain, it is the 5 organism chain. So what is a food chain? A food chain is a chain of flow of food energy from one organism to the next and to the next, and so on. They usually start with the producer and end with the carnivore. In a food chain, an organism get food from one group of organism. Can you say, me student, why does a food chain always start with the producer? Why does a food chain always start with a producer? Why a food chain always start with a producer? A food chain is always beginning with producer. Okay. Okay, Pushkar, I will do that. Very good. Because, yes, correct, Khushbu, because the producers can make their own food because they are only the autotrophs. Autotrophs, we did in life process that these are the organisms that can produce their own food. So they prepare their own food and no other organism in the food chain is preparing their own food. They are depending on the producer. That is why a food chain will always start with the producer. Is it clear to all? Is it clear to all the students? Okay, fine. Very good. Okay. Okay, I got the feedback. Fine. So now we are coming to our next topic of discussion, that is after food chain. Yes. Now here, students, in this slide, you can see a number of food chain is given, whether it is a grassland ecosystem or we can say aquatic ecosystem. So here some of the samples of the food chain are given over here. So first of all, we will be coming to the next term, that is food web. Now students, suppose I'm going back to my previous slide of food chain, so as to link you all with the food chain and the food web from this very example. Student, do you think that in nature grass can be eaten up by deer only? Let us consider the first one. The grass can be eaten up by deer only. Is it possible? Is it only possible? Correct. No. Very good. Again, my next question. Is it possible that the grass can be eaten up by the insect only? The grass can be eaten up by insect only. Is it like that? Very good. The answer is no. Again, my question. Is it possible in the nature that the grass can be eaten up by moth only? Is it possible? Again, the same answer, no. Very good, students. So in the nature, you can see all the food chains are interconnected. The grass can be eaten up by deer also. The grass can be eaten up by insect also. The grass can be eaten up by moth also. Got it? Deer can be eaten up by lion also, by tiger also. So in the nature, the food chain are interconnected, and a special term is given for this interconnected food chain, and that special term is called food web. So you can see a food web is a group of several interconnected food chains. In a food web, an organism get food from more than one group of organism. So here you can see that how the food chain, here you can see in this image that how the food chain are interconnected, where one organism is eaten up by the another, and hence more number of organism also. So the interconnected food chain in the nature is called food web. Got it? Is it clear to all the students? Okay, very good. Okay. Okay, very good. So again, Pushkar, I'm linking your question once again, as you said, to repeat once again the ecosystem. Ecosystem, definitely the functional unit in the environment which is formed by the interaction of the living and the non-living components. Okay. Is it clear to you, Pushkar? Is it clear, Pushkar? You are having a doubt there. Okay, fine. Okay. Okay. Now, students, after this, okay, fine. Now, once again, I'm coming back to some of the samples of the food chain. As you can see over here, that this is an example of an terrestrial food chain. Like producer is a grass, primary consumer is a rat, the secondary consumer is a snake, and the tertiary consumer is the, we can say, eagle or hawk over here. And togetherly, when they decompose, they are, we can say, eaten up by the decomposer when they die. Okay, so this was all about the food chain and the food wave. Okay, so is it clear to all the students? So today our topic of discussion was environment, ecosystem, components of the ecosystem, then what are the different types of ecosystem, what is a food chain and a food wave. Okay, is this clear to all the students? Okay, very good. Okay, so this was our today's topic of discussion. Okay. So finally, student, write down today's assignment. Write down today's assignment, students. Write down. Differentiate between food chain and food wave. You will write at least 3 differences. Differentiate between food chain and food wave. Differentiate between food chain and food wave. Okay, this is your today's assignment. Okay, so thank you, students, for today's class. Thank you all.